The learning targets for this lesson are: I could explain what a dilation is, I can describe what a scale factor does to a figure, I could explain a reduction and enlargement of a figure, I could show examples of a pre-image and image, and I could plot points of the image and label. Please take a minute and pause my video to watch the link provided to introduce you to the lesson. So when I think of the word dilation, I actually think of going to the eye doctor where they put drops in your eyes to dilate your pupils. As you notice in this picture, the pupils are dilated. That could mean enlarging them or reducing them and making them smaller. I like this comic. It says, "I find nothing wrong with your eyes." And if you look at the word dilation, I highlighted the two eyes in the word to remind me of going to the eye doctor where they make your pupils larger or smaller. I have a couple of vocab words here that I'd like you to write down. Pre-image is the original figure. Image is the figure after the change happens, and similar figures are the same shape but not the same size. So you see I have two different dilations here. One is a reduction where the pre-image was dilated and the image became smaller. And then I have an enlargement where the pre-image was smaller and they enlarged it and the image became large. We're going to be looking at dilations on graph, and if you notice, they don't have the words of enlargement or reduction, so it's your job to figure out if the figure got bigger or smaller. I have a little note here that says the image is shown with the prime symbols shown with a line. So I always think of those lines, they're called prime symbols, but I always think of them as an eye to represent the image. So I look here, the original is purple, and it was dilated or enlarged to make an image of the green figure. Over here, the purple image, the purple original figure was dilated and made smaller to the blue image. This entire unit is called transformations. When you think of a transformer, you think of changing it into something else, and that's exactly what this unit is about. It's about changing things into something else. We're going to learn about 4 transformations, and our first one is dilation. Okay, so I'd like you to write down the vocab word dilation and write down that it's an enlargement or reduction of a figure. So we're going to talk about how to make that figure bigger or smaller. You are going to multiply it by a number called a scale factor. So please note that if the scale factor is less than 1, it's going to make your object smaller. If your scale factor is larger than 1, it's going to make your object bigger. Okay? And there's a way to represent this algebraically, which we will look at, and it's just taking the coordinate and multiplying it by the scale factor, which is represented by k in this figure. And you know when two numbers are next to each other with no sign in between, it means to multiply. So a dilation, again, is a multiplication. So here our directions say, draw the image under a dilation with a scale factor of 2 and give the coordinates. So here I wrote some directions out to help you dilate the figure. So this is the figure I'm going to be dilating, and it says list the coordinates of the vertices of the pre-image. Vertices just mean endpoints. So the first thing I'm going to do is write the coordinates of A, B, and C. Okay? Number 2 says note the scale factor and whether the figure will get smaller or larger. Well, my scale factor is 2, which since it's larger than 1, my figure will get larger. Number 3 says apply the dilation to the pre-image and write the coordinates of the vertices or the endpoints of the image. So since we said a dilation is a multiplication, all I'm going to do is take my coordinates, 1, 1, and multiply them by 2 to get 2, 2. For B, I'm going to take my coordinate of 2, 1 and multiply each of the numbers by 2. And then I'm going to take C, and again, 1, 3 is going to become 2, 6 when I multiply each of the numbers by 2. Number 4 says sketch the image after the dilation in the coordinate grid. Don't forget to label. So the first thing I'm going to do is plot 2, 2. Then I'm going to plot 4, 2 and 2, 6. Okay, I'd like you to do that with me. Then connect your points. And the last step is always to label. Okay, then we have A prime, and that is my answer. If we want to do a quick check, okay, we again notice that all of my coordinates were multiplied by 2, which made my figure larger. Another example, we're going to be looking at drawing the image under a dilation with a scale factor of 3 and giving the coordinates. Okay, so again, step number 1 is list the coordinates of the vertices of the pre-image. So all I'm going to do is write down the coordinates. So S is -1, 1. E is, again, be careful, it's where the point is, not where the letter is. That's very confusing. So it's -2, 1. And then M, again, it's where the point is, not where the letter is. And it's -1, 3. Okay, so note the scale factor and whether it will get smaller or larger. My scale factor is 3. It's larger than 1, so my figure will get bigger. Apply the dilation to the pre-image and write the coordinates of the vertices. So all I'm going to do is, since my scale factor is 3, I'm going to multiply by 3. Take each number, multiply by 3. And now you have your new endpoints. Sketch the image after the dilation in the coordinate grid. So I'm going to take S prime, which is -3, 3. I'm going to take E prime, which is -6, 3, and M prime, which is -3, 9. Okay, when I'm done, I'm going to connect my points. My figure did become larger like it was supposed to, and I'm going to take my pen and just label each point. And we're done. We're going to look at 2 more examples. These 2 are going to actually get smaller. Okay, so I started you off and I already listed the coordinates of the vertices of the pre-image. Number 2 says, will it get larger or smaller? Well, because of my scale factor of 0.5 or 1/2, it's going to get smaller because that number is smaller than 1. So my first step is actually number 3, which is apply the dilation. So I'm going to take these numbers and multiply them by 1/2. When you multiply something by 1/2, all you're doing is cutting it in half. So 1/2 of 2 is 1, and 1/2 of 4 is 2. Okay, so that gives me all of my coordinates. Again, multiplying by 1/2 is just taking half of it. Number 4 says sketch the image. So I'm going to plot 1, 1, 1, 2, and 2, 1. My figure absolutely becomes smaller. I'm going to label M prime, A prime, and T prime. And there is my dilation. We're going to look at one more example. Again, I started you off with the coordinates. It says draw the image under a dilation with a scale factor of 1/3. Because of that 1/3, the figure is going to get smaller because it's smaller than 1. So again, my first step is to apply the dilation. When you multiply by 1/3, you are taking 1/3 of the number, which is actually like dividing by 3. Okay, so you can either type into your calculator -6 times 1/3, or you could do -6 divided by 3. That will give you the same answer. Okay, same thing applies for the other numbers. You are just dividing by 3, but since we know that a dilation is a multiplication, we're going to think of it as multiplying by 1/3. Okay, we have our points. I'm going to plot them, -2, 3, 1, 1, and -3, 1. Going to connect my points. Again, my object clearly became smaller. My dilation was a reduction. I'm going to label my points A prime, B prime, and C prime. And I'm done with my dilation.